So it's pancake day, and it feels like it'd be a bit remiss of us not to give you some kind of recipe or some ideas to be going on with. So we're going to have a look at 2 different types of pancakes, and we're going to do 2 different toppings using stuff that we've got coming through the boxes at the moment. First one we're going to do is a classic pancake, what you might call a French crepe maybe, but that thin pancake, there's no rise to it, it's kind of wafer thin. If you make a perfect one, they say you should be able to read newsprint through it, but I don't think we're going to get it quite that thin. So this recipe couldn't be simpler. You start with 100 grams of well sifted plain flour, and to that you add 300 mils of milk and then a pinch of salt. And then you want to add 1 egg and 1 egg yolk, and then get a whisk, good old fashioned whisking, whisk it until it's nice and smooth. So that batter's resting now. We're going to leave that for about half an hour, maybe slightly longer. That rest is going to give you a much better, much smoother pancake. Now the classic filling for these is just a squeeze of lemon juice and a shake of sugar, and that's delicious and straightforward and simple, so you can go that way. But they're going to make me earn my money today, so I'm going to have a play around and try and come up with a filling that's suitable for it. We're simply going to take the core out of each apple. Now it's the middle of the apple that we want to stuff. What we're going to do is take a knife and just make that hole slightly bigger so that we can get a more generous fill inside. And now the trick that I'm hoping is going to make it easy for us to fill our pancakes is we're going to turn the apple and we're going to slice across it 6 or 7 slices, so that once it's done and once it's baked, we can spread it out almost like a deck of cards inside the pancake, and that saves us from having to squish the apple down, and it should fan out really nicely in the middle, and we should be able to wrap our pancake around it, so fingers crossed for that. So I've got some chopped nuts and some chopped dried fruit here. I've put 4 tablespoons of maple syrup in and about 80 grams of butter, and I'm going to melt that on the hob so that butter melts and mixes it all together, and then I'm going to spoon that and press it down into those apples. The oven's been preheated to about 180 degrees C, and if you've got a lid, all well and good. If not, tent it with a bit of foil. Put it in there and bake them for about 30 to 40 minutes. Right, these apples are ready now. They're a bit of a success actually, so they've held their shape nicely. That apple is clearly tender all the way through, and the inside is caramelised nicely on the top. So we've got something really good and tasty to fill the pancakes with. And the trick with a pancake really is that you want to move fast with these thin pancakes. As soon as the batter hits the pan, it's going to start setting. So you want to swirl the batter around so you get a nice even cover. We almost want to imagine that the pan's on a gimbal, and that you're turning it around so it's kind of spinning around and everything's going to evenly smooth around the pan. It might take a couple of goes. Quite often when you're making these type of pancakes, you end up sacrificing the first pancake to the god of pancakes. It either goes wrong or it sticks in the pan. So I'm going to drop a bit of butter into the pan. So when that butter's foaming, add the ladleful and then tip the pan as soon as the ladleful's in. Swirl it around so that you get a nice even covering. If you miss any little bits, you can get a bit and dab it in and make the fill. But you want it to be in every corner of the pan. As it cooks, you'll see it go from liquid on the top to completely set. That gives you a really good indication that it's cooking. You can use your spatula to lift the edges up just to make sure, see what the colour's like on the bottom. And if you've got a good non-stick pan, give it a good shake. Let it come free, because you're going to want to flip it in a minute. Okay, so you can get your spatula underneath the edge, and you can tease the pancake onto it and flip the whole thing over. Or if you're feeling confident, you can do that. Okay, so that pancake's nicely coloured on both sides now. You can see that it's coloured on the bottom. Flip it over again, lay it out onto your plate. Now here comes the moment of truth with the apples. So what we're going to do is take one of the apples and we're going to place it at the far end of the pancake, and we should be able to lay it down like a deck of cards, and then we can tuck one side of the pancake over and flip the other over as well. You've got a baked apple pancake. It's beautiful. If I was on my own, I'd probably hoof this into my mouth with no decorum at all, but I'm going to use a knife and fork. I'm going to be civilised. I know that James wouldn't be. That works really, really well. It looks really comforting. In fact, if you really wanted to take this one step further, a little drizzle of custard over the top would be amazing with that. Oh, that's really good. The next pancake recipe we're going to look at is sometimes called a drop scone, sometimes called a Scotch pancake or an American style pancake. And the difference between this pancake is that actually it wants to be fluffy and light. And so it's different in nature in that we don't let the batter sit for a while, because what we're going to use to give us that rise is baking powder. And baking powder's potency disappears over time. We've got a standard drop scone recipe on the website. It's got butter, milk, flour and eggs in it. But what we're going to do for this one, we're going to make a vegan version of it just to show that it's possible and it doesn't need to be all about those ingredients. For the topping, we're going to use some blood oranges. We're going to make a little syrup and we're going to segment the oranges and we're just going to put that on top. Then you take the top and the bottom off the oranges and then you sit them on the chopping board. And you take a sharp knife and you go round, follow the curve of the orange and take the whole peel and pith off with it. And what you want is the orange completely skinless, but still all attached in its segments. And when you have the skinned orange, cut either side of the membrane that's on either side of the segments. You want to do that and then give a little flick of the knife and it will drop out. And you just go around, just think of the orange almost like a Rolodex of cards. And then with whatever's left in your hand, you squeeze that juice out so you're not wasting anything at all. We'll tip the juice into a pan and leave the segments in the bowl, and we'll add about 4 tablespoons of maple syrup. We'll bring that up to a simmer and we'll cook it until it reduces back down into a syrup. When that's nice and syrupy, we'll drop the segments back into it and let them warm through and take it off the heat. Now, like the other batter, we are going to sift our dry ingredients. So we're going to have 100 grams of plain flour, and to that we're going to add half a tablespoon of baking powder. And now for our wet ingredients, we're going to use some almond milk. You could use oat milk if you like. And we're going to add a small banana in there. Now that banana is going to add a little bit of body to the batter, almost like an egg would as it sets. We're going to add a tiny bit of cider vinegar in there, about a tablespoon as well. Now that cider vinegar, that acid, helps to really activate the baking powder. And then the final thing we're going to add to that wet ingredient is about a tablespoon of oil. So we're going to whiz the wet ingredients together, take all those lumps of banana out, we're going to add them to the dry, and we're going to bring them together, and we're going to bring them together so they're just smooth, but we're not going to whisk and whisk and whisk the life out of it. If we work it too much, then we're going to get tough pancakes. This batter is ready and it's noticeably thicker than the first pancake batter. It wants to be able to drop nicely off a spoon, hence the name drop scone. Now you want about a dessert spoon of the batter and you just drop it in there and it will start to spread out. You can use your spoon to kind of tease it round into a circle and it will start to set, and as it sets it stops it spreading, and that's just about right. And you just leave it there maybe a minute or two. You'll see the edges start to colour and you'll see the bubbles start to come up through the batter, and that gives you an indication that the bottom's done. You can use your spatula to kind of tease the edge up and see how it's cooking. Look at that. He's epic. Okay, so these pancakes are ready. They are light and fluffy, and these blood oranges are sharp and sweet. At the same time, they go really, really well together. And eat them hot and eat them as fast as you can. They're so fluffy, they're acting like sponges and soaking up all that syrup. Really delicious. So thank you for watching our pancake video. I hope you have a great pancake day, whatever you choose to cook. Please like, subscribe and hit the notification button for new videos every Monday. Thanks.